This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, my name is Noble Manna, founder of Collective HR Solutions, and you are joining us on the Technology Review Council. Today we have Clarity Wave with Robert Mutal, and we will get to that demo, but let me give you a quick synopsis. We have partnered with the IREM organization, that's the International Human Resource Information Management Association, a very long-term and very near and dear to my heart organization. And in partnering with them, we are now being able to do a number of things. I'm going to move to a quick slide here. We basically have, in partnering with them, they have a number of different services and content and organizational perspective to share with people in the HR technology space. We're very proud to be part of that. They have a certification program, which I'm also very proud of owning the certification behind that. And we basically are a hub for content and new things that are happening in the world of HR technology. So if you don't know about it, please go out to irem.org. If you do know about it, go out in there and take a look anyway. So I would also say that for those of you who are HRIP accredited, we are giving the education credit for attending the Technology Review Council meetings. And I think that's a very, very good incentive as well to join us. And certainly since we record this session and put it up on our YouTube channel, if for some reason you missed something, please let me know. I'll be happy to direct you to the right session and you'll get the credit as well. So with that being said, let's go on to the presentation. And I'm going to just simply turn off my sharing screen. And if you will, let me make you the presenter so we are seeing your camera up front here. And that should do it for us. Robert, you are now on.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining the call. Really quickly.
Down there, Robert, I'm sorry. You're going to have to accept the presenter so that your screen now becomes the screen that we're seeing, not just the camera.
Yeah. How do I didn't get any pop-ups. Was I supposed to get a pop-up or something?
Yeah, I
don't know. Or
yeah, I made you the presenter, web presenter. So
when I'm talking, do I become like a prominent? Maybe everybody has to.
You should be able to see what's on your screen, and so if you can just simply hit the screen share at the bottom, the little thing with the.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not going to share my screen. Because I use another system called and that's what I'm using to present.
Okay, that's going to be a small problem because I think in the long run, if we're not seeing what is on your screen, or if your face is on your screen, which would then give rise to what you're showing behind you on the webcam, I think that would work, but it would mean that you'd have to share your screen.
Oh, okay. Give me just a quick second.
Let's give it a shot and see if that works out.
I mean, if you can, if every attendant can make me as the main. I know in Zoom you can pin the content and make me bigger, make me like the prominent person.
Like that.
I don't know how it works in GoToMeeting. I don't use GoToMeeting, but let me know. If not, let me just see if I can. Oh, here. Let me select my screen now.
Yeah, GoToMeeting is a little different.
Yeah, I know. Let me select GoToMeeting here.
All righty.
Oh, it's gonna ask me to restart again. Sorry.
Oh, he'll be back very quickly. I apologize, folks. This should have been tested out beforehand. I know testing works better.
Okay.
All right, you're back, and I think I end up having you're still showing as presenter.
Okay, perfect. Let me just open my presentation here.
All righty.
And we'll make it work through there.
Good deal.
Let me share my screen.
Yeah. That should be down the little screen, bottom of the screen.
Yeah, let me.
Bingo, we are there.
Can you see my screen?
And your face is still up in our gallery, so that's good.
Perfect, excellent. I don't know what I did.
We'll get there. Well,
We'll
again,
get there.
thank you very much.
So-
Please introduce
so-
yourself and Clarity Wave, and let's just go on it. And as you mentioned earlier, just for in case we miss it, we're going to hold our questions to the end of the demo. So
Yes. So I'm Robert Mutal. I'm originally from Mexico City. I've been living in beautiful San Diego since 1998. My background is actually from in television. I used to work for the Univision and Telemundo stations here in San Diego from like 2001 until 2018, so 17 years in television. All kinds of positions from production manager, general manager, vice president. So I know what it was like to be in a 1,200 employee company in different positions and dealing with employees. And at some point, I had some challenging experiences with some people that were very toxic. I was transferred to Los Angeles and working with an executive vice president that was, I call her Cruella de Vil's evil sister. She was like the worst manager ever. And she actually caused a couple other vice presidents to leave the company because they just couldn't work with her. She started with around 40 people under her. And by the time they let her go 4 years later, she only had one person reporting to her. That's how much toxicity she created, that no one wanted to work in her sphere because they would get, really demoralized. On the other hand, my brother, who's also my partner, we started Clarity Wave 8 years ago. He is part owner of 24, 25 Haagen-Dazs ice cream stores. So he knows what it's like to have, hundreds of employees. And usually in the service industry, especially in the ice cream industry, people don't really last very long. They were, his turnover rate was around 70%. And each employee that left cost him around $1,900. So you can imagine that there was a lot of pain for him to have that huge turnover problem. So we joined forces, and that's when we decided to create Clarity Wave with no real experience in software development. We hired some of the best developers we could find, we could afford, and we created the system 8 years ago. So I'm going to talk really quickly. Usually the first part of the agenda, I do a lot more when I have more interaction, but in this case, it's more of a presentation. But I am going to talk a little bit about the difference between engagement and motivation. I'm going to show you what the hard way of doing things is. I'm going to show you the easy way, which is our solution. And then I'm going to guide you through a day in the life of a real company. And yeah, that's fine, perfect. So when we talk about engagement versus motivation, I usually ask, what would you rather have, engaged or motivated employees? And sometimes they say one or the other, but you can't have actually one without the other. And what happens when that's the case? So when you have engaged but unmotivated employees, these are people that usually love the culture of the company. They love the company. I used to love working in television. I love, seeing sometimes some of the artists from the telenovelas and the shows. I love the culture, but I wasn't really motivated to give extra of me. I was already doing the minimum amount of work not to get fired. When you have the opposite case of motivated but disengaged employees, these are super expensive. These are people that really achieve their goals. They reach their quotas. They get all their bonuses. They're always looking to advance, and they're really good and really high performing, but they're disengaged. And the problem is when they get, when they dangle a little piece of shiny object in another company, they jump ship, and that is very expensive for the company. So what we're really looking for is for high performing, engaged, and super motivated employees. We need both of them. Now, since the 1950s, there's been tons of studies trying to figure out what drives engagement and what drives motivation. There's the hierarchy of needs, the two-factor theory, the equity theory. All of these, some of them touch on different aspects, and we try to figure out if they all had something in common. And actually they do. They have 6 things in common that drive both engagement and motivation. The first one is communication. We want to feel like We know what's happening in the organization, especially now during a pandemic, everyone working from home. We have Zoom meetings that are very disjointed because we don't really have a lot of chit chat before or after. All the water cooler informal communication gets broken down. So we feel like we're in the dark, and that makes us very anxious. The second one is growth and development. We want to feel like we're advancing not only professionally, but also personally in our workplace. The third one is recognition and appreciation. We want to feel like what we're doing is being recognized by others. If we do a good job, we want to feel like somebody cared about it. The fourth one is trust. We want to trust the organization, the leadership, our supervisors, our direct reports, our peers. We want to know that we're not going to be backstabbed at any moment. The fifth one is belonging and camaraderie. This is what makes up most of the company culture, is how well do people get along? Do we feel like they're part of a tribe? Are we all together in the trenches, kind of rolling our sleeves and working towards a common objective? And then we can go have a drink afterward. And lastly, justice and equality. We want to feel like there's the decisions are made, based on data and not just on nepotism or favoritism, et cetera, et cetera. Now, doing this the old way is a ton of work. You need to keep employees informed, one-on-one meetings, status meetings, announcing new initiatives, sharing company news and updates, building an intranet, celebrating special dates, clear and transparent processes, fair reward systems, providing feedback, creating growth plans, public recognition, designing rewards programs. That's a job in itself, surveying the employees regularly, asking them for feedback, comments, suggestions, communicating goals and objectives, and making sure that the words really match the organization's actions. So that's a ton of work. And on top of it, you need to do it regularly. You need to make it fun. Otherwise, it feels like you're herding cats all day long up Mount Everest, and it's a ton of work. There's multiple systems to manage. Each of them cost a lot of money. Maybe you end up hiring a consultant to help you wrap the arms around all of it, and it's very hard to see the ROI. So what if there was a better way? And basically what ClarityWave does is we are an all-in-one crowdsourced system. And that's the key word here, crowdsourced. Because when everybody participates in the system, they do it not because the company is asking them to do, but because it behooves everybody. Everybody's getting some value. Oops, I got out of my, there we go. Everybody's getting some value from the system, and therefore they're participating. So let me go factor by factor how we tackle this. So for communication, the system has private and public messages. Everyone can message each other. This is a feature companies can turn on or off in case they have other systems like Slack or Teams, etc. We have something where everyone can learn about the news, announcements, updates about the company. It becomes kind of like a town hall where everyone can find out what's happening in the company. It's almost like a dynamic digital newsletter where you can add banners that are very prominent or include stories and turn them on, turn them off. And finally, for communication, it's very important that people know why they're going to work. What's the vision? What's the mission of the company? What are the values, the procedures? This is something that usually we tell them when we hire somebody, we tell them what the mission of the company is. And at that point, when they're getting hired, they just want to know if their keywords and where the bathroom is. They're not really thinking about the mission. So we put a section in the system where people can revisit that and learn about it all the time. Now, for growth and development, we do something that nobody else does, and that's kind of like our unique selling proposition is every other system that measures employee engagement, they measure it only from the perspective of the organization. All the questions are asked about the organization, the leadership, the facilities, the benefits, the procedures, etc. We take it a step further, and we actually measure emotional intelligence. So the way we do it is everybody has their network of relationships. All of those people are evaluating me and I'm evaluating them. So everybody's giving each other peer-to-peer feedback. I once remember I was in San Antonio at a company event and I needed to get an Uber. So I, got an Uber, the Uber driver stops and she says, "You're very lucky that I stopped for you." I'm like, lucky? Why lucky? Says, because I only stop for people who have a 4.5 or above rating. I'm like, I have a rating? What's my rating? So I looked at it, she showed me where, and I had a 4.2 rating. I'm like, who gave me a bad rating? I'm like the nicest person you'll ever meet. Why did I get a bad rating? And I became obsessed by my individual score that I wanted to start looking for ways to improve that rating because I didn't want to get stranded by some Uber driver that had a very high standard of rating. So whenever people start seeing how they're being perceived by their network of relationships, everybody in their team and everybody they work with, that's when they start finding areas of growth and opportunity. And we find out very, very commonly with our clients how employees start improving a lot in those terms. For belonging and camaraderie, our system has very heavy peer-to-peer recognition. Everyone can recognize each other in a very organic way. We have the private messaging, which I mentioned before. We also have birthdays and special dates. The system automatically sends out a message, an email message to whoever has a celebration. And we have an organization directory. So if it's a large company, it's very easy to see who's whom, what they look like, where they are, what position they have. I can send them a message, etc. For justice and equality, it's very important that all the surveys remain anonymous. We want to know what they said about me, but never who said it. And that is super, super important. They're real 360-degree surveys because we're not just basing it on the org chart, but rather basing it on everyone that I work with. And we have an interactive suggestion box. Everyone can offer their ideas. They go first through a filter. The administrator of the system decides what gets published. And once something gets published, then people can start voting on those suggestions. And we have public recognitions and rewards. For trust, it's very important that we not only see the picture of department, but we actually see the movie. So how do we measure the pulse? And we have these pulse surveys that measure the mood and the climate of a team. So for example, you can see the accounting department, how are they doing? You can see if you change a manager from one position to another, is that affecting the mood and the climate of that particular department? And you can see that over time, you can see those trends. And finally, for recognition and appreciation, we make sure that all the system is gamified. Everyone is earning badges, trophies. You know, working with a company culture involves having some kind of fun. People can earn stickers, they can reward each other with stickers, and every time they participate, they are earning points. And those points, they can trade them for prizes. Now, we advocate that the company doesn't spend a lot of money on prizes. We have a prize store that the company fills out with whatever they want, but we are very big proponents that they do a lot of benefits. For example, we have a client where the CEO is one of those people who loves to do magic and sing rap songs and things like that. So you can buy a prize that for like 5,000 Clarity Wave points, the CEO will come up to your desk and perform a magic trick. So that's a great way to make it fun, to improve the culture of the company. Other clients do Starbucks cards, or they do balloons, or they do pizza, they do things like that. The story is just the icing on the cake, not the cake itself. The idea is for employees to reward each other. So basically, the whole idea is for our clients to focus on the process, on the data and not the process. The system runs automatically. All the emails are sent automatically. The natural interactions happen within the system that improve the engagement and motivation. Users provide feedback and solutions. They learn from their scores, they grow, they reward each other. And now managers become much more than just supervisors. Now they become mentors. Because managers, if the administrator of the system allows managers to see their team's scores, now they can work exactly like a surgeon on what the pain point of every single team member has. So if a team member, let's say they're low, scoring low on credibility, they can work on that. Or if they're scoring low on identity, they can work on that. So how does the system work? It's 4 steps. Step number 1, you set up your network of relationships. Everybody defines, this is my team, this is the people I work with. Step 2, answer the daily mood and climate pulse questions. How do you feel and how do you perceive the climate? These questions are available every single day, and they start drawing these trends over time. Step 3, this is the core of the system, the weekly questions. We have 7 to 10 questions. 7 questions are already pre-done. You don't have to do anything. They change every single week. They're part of our measuring model which I'll show you in a second. But every company has 3 additional questions every single week that are completely customizable. I can ask whatever I want to whomever I want. I can create a question for the accounting department on maybe a new software they're evaluating, or I can create a question for the whole company on, you know, the flavor of the creamer that we're putting in the kitchen. And step number 4 is participating within the community. And that's where a lot of the social aspect of the system comes into play. So let me show you what the model looks like. What we did is we took from the best measuring systems out there, the best employee engagement systems, Great Place to Work, Top Companies, Gallup Q12. We took the best of all of them, and when we saw where there were areas of opportunity to actually create an even better model. So we measure 5 different indexes. We measure the well-being, things like satisfaction, social connection, human character, etc. We measure the trust people have in the company based on the credibility, the fairness, and the respect. We measure how fit a company is based on the culture, things like values, career opportunities, image and reputation. We measure the performance, the perceived performance of the company. We measure the productivity, things like quality, innovation, collaboration. And finally, we measure how anchored people are in the company based on their level of identity and their level of camaraderie. When that index is very high, usually turnover tends to be very low because people are really anchored to the organization. Now, this is what's measuring the workplace climate. We also measure emotional intelligence. So that means that every single person has their own index, and that index, their own model, and that model has indexes, categories, and subcategories. We measure how rooted a person is in the company based on their level of identity, their camaraderie, and their commitment, and a virtue index that measures the level of performance, respect, fairness, and credibility. All in all, we have about 70 different indicators that tell you a clear image, not only of the company, but of each individual employee. So let me go really quickly through an example. This is a real company. They're a tax law firm. They are out of Las Vegas, around 250 employees now, and they've been a client of ours since 2015. And I mention this because 6 years of answering weekly surveys at a 75% participation rate, which is huge. 3 out of 4 people answer the surveys every single week, can only be achieved if everybody's getting some value from the system. So I'm going to go through a couple of employees from this company. This is Kelly, one of the sales advisors. I have no idea what Kelly looks like, but every screen I'm going to show you is a real screenshot from this system. So Kelly receives an email, either to her work email, her personal email, whatever you registered her with. And this email has the first question of the week, makes the barrier of entry super easy. She sees the question, answers it directly, and is logged into the system to continue with the survey. This email also includes some article that helps her be more productive, deal with conflict, how to eat healthy during lunchtime, different things that help her. We also include always a quote of the week that's motivational, inspirational. We want to give them value all the time. Next, she's in the system. First thing she's going to do is make sure she sets up her network of relationships. These are the 17 people she works with. And now that she has them all, now she can start working with the system. She can add her supervisors, etc. Now she can start looking at the system. If you notice here, there's a banner. This is one of the ways you can communicate different things. For example, welcoming a new team member or giving some kind of instruction if they're gonna, spray for bugs or whatever, and people need to leave at a certain time. That's where you can post this information. Now she can log into the system every single day and answer, how do you feel right now? And how do you perceive the climate? Every time she does that, she's going to earn some points. Some people do it every day. Some people do it once a week. Doesn't matter. Some people who are doing every day, they're mostly doing it for the points, and that's okay. You want them to continue participating. Now she has the whole week to answer the survey. The survey comes up on Mondays, ends on Sundays, and she can change her answers during the week. They don't get locked until Sunday. So this is a company question, for example. She answers that one. This is a people question, up to 5 people per question. We don't want to overwhelm Kelly. The whole thing should take between 2 and 4 minutes. And now it's time for her to look in the mirror. Now it's time for her to see how she's being perceived in the different indexes. We have a virtual index, rooted index, what we call the epic index, which is the overall, all the scores put together, an average in the system. And she can start drilling down in the different categories. If you see there, for example, credibility, respect, and performance are performing a little below what we would like. She can start looking at the different categories, subcategories, the themes, the sample questions. She can see, for example, how she's being scored, how many times she's being scored on every subcategory. She can compare herself with the average of the rest of the company. We never pit people head to head, but she can see and do some benchmarking how she's being performing in respect to the rest of the organization. And if you notice, she has been using the system to actually continue improving. In 2017, her score, her EPIC score was 4.71, and by 2020, it was 8.04. So that's the type of improvement we constantly see in all the different metrics. She has earned a whole bunch of trophies, a whole bunch of badges. These are given automatically by the system. She doesn't have to do anything. Every time somebody scores her, let's say on a question about fairness, and she gets a perfect score, it will count towards her next badge. Let's look at another person. This is John, one of the attorneys. He notices here, there's a banner here. They have some kind of event, Taco Tuesday, but he also received an email saying that he just received a recognition. So he clicks on the link, which takes him to the community section where he can see what type of recognition he got. In this case, 3 people have given him virtual stickers. We have a list of around 50 different stickers with different personality attributes. And in this case, 1 person actually gave him some extra points, 30 points, which he can use at the store. These points are available for everybody just for the purpose of recognizing your peers. So everybody, let's say they have 300 points, they can recognize 10 people at 30 points or whatever. He actually decides he wants to recognize his assistant, goes there, selects a sticker, and sends her some points. In the community, he goes to the celebration section, sees who has the birthday, and can send that person a message. And the system will also do it automatically. In this case, he just wanted to do something more personalized. Let's look at Adrian. He's one of the brand new people in the organization. First thing you want to do is direct him to the organization section. He can read a little bit about the company, the mission, the vision, the history of the company, the procedures, look at the directory, who's whom, what they look like, where they work, etc. Next, he goes to the community, where he can read about the news of the company. This is the news section. He can see, for example, there's a carpet cleaning, a big, important, inconvenient piece of information. They have a seminar, they have a baby shower, some other events. So he learns about what the organization is doing. Next, he goes to the suggestion section, where he can see what ideas other people have offered. These have been pre-approved by the administrator of the system. In this case, for example, they have this first aid training. It's a good idea, and now he can vote for that. He can offer an idea of his own, and when it gets published, people can start voting on that idea as well. And people they become really ambassadors of their ideas, because once they start getting votes, they start feeling super proud that maybe they improve the company or the conditions for somebody. This is some of the messaging system that we see. Let's look at marketing. Amy for marketing, she has been participating in the system for a while. Lately, her mood and climate has been a little bit on the decline on both her perceptions. However, she can see all her scores, and she has earned a whole bunch of points. She goes into the store and she decides that she wants to treat herself to a free day off. This is one of the prizes that this company decided to put here. We usually work with our clients to help them come up with really, really effective prizes. Let's look at the side of HR. So Erica is pretty much the goddess of the system. She has access to every single piece of information the system has. She makes sure that she gets good data, that there's a high confidence level in the system, that all the departments are participating enough. In this case, we have one department and it's having some challenges in participation. Next, she can look at the different indexes or all the different metrics from the system, and she can start drilling down by department and start looking for stories, for areas where she can apply some of her magic. In this case, if she goes to marketing, there's a problem here with the fitness index as perceived by the marketing department. She can drill down to the categories, drill down to the subcategory level. And in this case, for example, career opportunities and management are having some challenges for the marketing department. She can see what types of questions are being asked on each of the subcategories. She can see what types of needs are being filled, the ranking of needs. In this case, for example, managerial support is having some issues. She can see what the mood and climate of that department has been throughout time. You don't need to be a data scientist to see that that's a roller coaster. Something happened there at the very bottom that actually started to turn it around. She can compare it with another department. In this case, you can see that there's a big problem between marketing and the rest of the company. She can see these comparisons as well. And we have these heat maps, and these heat maps are super useful because you can tell when there's a smoke before there's a fire. Right now, we're looking, for example, at satisfaction between men and women. Everything is green, that's perfect. We can look at it by age range. Everything is green, that's great. When you look at it by seniority, in this particular company, we have an interesting case. People who have been with the company for 10 years or more are having issues with managerial support. And it kind of makes sense. Usually the managers end up paying more attention to the brand new hires than those who have been with the company for 10 years. And they think that people don't resent it, but actually in this case, they are. And all the people who have been with the company for 10 years or more are having issues in their satisfaction. And those are super expensive people to replace. Speaking of expensive, when you look at it by department in this particular company, the two departments that have the worst problems in managerial support are legal and estate planning. And if you remember what this company does, they're a law firm. So all the lawyers are in those departments, legal or estate planning. Can you imagine what happens if those lawyers start looking for another job? They're going to go to the competitors. And when they saw this screen, that's when they took action and they immediately started changing managers. They started improving that because that was a big leak in the dam that was causing a major problem. Now, Erica has access to everybody's scores, and she can determine if a manager has access to somebody's scores as well. And she can start looking at individual employees and start going into their individual pages and really become a mentor and help them out, especially when they're having a problem in one of their particular trends. In that case, for example, that trend took a little dip in the end, and she can work with that. She has access to every single question that the system asks. She can see what the question is, what the topics are, the scores. She can, of course, look at the comments. She can see the distribution of the questions, and she can create her own questions, 3 per week, ask whatever she wants, different types of questions. She can ask the whole company or just a group, and she can get immediate feedback, a week later, and it makes it a super powerful survey system. She can also look at different reports by topics, etc. We provide our clients with an executive report once a month that gives you all the information very visually, and it tells you exactly where the company was last month, where it is right now. We have a case here, Henkel. I'm sure you know this company. It's a multinational company. They had a big turnover problem in one of their departments. Their shared services center in Mexico deals with about 350 employees, and they had a 23% turnover rate. Their goal was to reach 18%, which is kind of like the industry standard. They were able to reach that a month after I took that picture of Marianela. She went to Miami. She was invited to a congress, and the whole conference was about how ClarityWave helped them reduce by 4 points their turnover in only 6 months. I have that video. I can make it available for you. I edited it down to about 7 minutes. It's super interesting. So how do we start with a company? Very easy. They provide us with their logo. We're very hands-on, very white glove type of service. We get a list of team members in an Excel sheet. We create the website. We provide them with a whole bunch of support materials, like different posters and different materials that they can distribute to their team. From there, we do a tour of the system, a training. We launch. We make sure everybody can log into the system correctly. We provide them with bilingual support. The whole system is 100% in English and 100% in Spanish. That actually means every single video Every piece of support that the system gives is in both languages. And we provide our clients, this is super important, and I kind of say it quickly, but it's super expensive for us. We provide free consultations to our clients. So if they have a question, if they want to get together and look at the data, look at different areas of opportunity, find out different stories, how we can help them. Our goal is not just to sell them software, but to help companies become epic organizations, and that is super important. So usually when I'm talking to a client, I want to make sure that they feel they have nothing to lose. So I want to take away all the risk possible. So first of all, sky high ROI. The system will pay for itself if we can only move the needle, positively in any of the metrics, be it absenteeism, productivity, turnover, anything that moves the needle, the system will pay for itself. Second, quick implementation. We take about 10 days from the moment we get the database of employees, and we take those 10 days to create an awareness campaign before we launch. With those posters, we have some teaser posters, like something big is coming, we have a new initiative, get ready for some changes, etc. And that actually creates very, very high participation. Next, we don't touch company servers, we don't download anything, everything's cloud-based. They don't need to download an app that may drain their battery or compromise their data. We don't touch any of that. This is the super, super important one. No long-term contracts. This forces us to do our best to get hired every single month. Every single month, we want to make sure that our clients are actually getting a lot of value. And if they're not, they can send me a text message. They don't need to fill out 3 forms to cancel. They send me a text message. They'll never get an invoice from us again. Another important one, we don't charge a setup fee. That means from the moment the client says yes, until we get their database, we're working for free. We have our website ready for them. And once we're ready, they have 2 weeks to launch before they even get the first invoice. And they can cancel the process anytime. And we provide them with very personalized service and consultations. Now, speaking about price, we believe that a company that wants to improve engagement, motivation, satisfaction, happiness in the company, they should be able to do the minimum. For me, kind of like the minimum is when somebody comes to my house, comes to my office, I usually buy them a cup of coffee. So a company should be able to afford a cup of coffee for their employees. Starbucks is around $4.25 for a macchiato, a frappuccino, usually for the middle size. Our system for companies between 25 and 500 employees is $4 per user per month. Everything's included, no setup fee, no long-term contracts, and if they pay, the year in advance, the whole annual, we give them a 10% discount. Now, this doesn't mean that the client is stuck with us for a year. If they want to cancel in the middle of the year, they get all the money back in the end. Basically, that's what the system is like. And now I'd like to open it up for questions.
Terrific presentation, Robert. Very much entertained, very much so.
Thank you.
I don't see any questions in chat, so let me open it up to the audience if they'd like to ask some questions. I do, even though I've seen the system now, every time I see it, I see new things. So I want to be able to ask. So anyone want to ask Robert any questions, any burning issues, any perspectives, anything you'd like to, and then I'll answer my questions.
Hi,
Melissa.
Robert. This is Melissa, and I have a question for you.
Yes.
First of all, bravo. This is beautiful. I love to see it. I've not seen a system yet that does all the things that your system does. So fantastic. And a question for you that often becomes an issue with peer feedback or peer input is that it sometimes becomes a popularity contest and that some people are more visible in the organization than others. Do you have any kind of nudging system where you're encouraging people to think about those that they might not interact with on a day in and day out basis, or those who are more back office than front office folks, so that they get as much input and feedback as others who are more visible might in the organization?
That's a great question. And the thing is, we never show, we don't have like a leaderboard where you can see who's being popular in the organization. It doesn't show like, oh, this person has the best scores ever, because that can become very toxic. And I see So everybody, let's say, for example, it doesn't matter what my popularity is in the organization. If I work with a lot of people, I'm going to have a big network, and that network is going to provide me with a lot of richness. And if I work with few people, that's, you know, just different amounts of feedback that I'm getting. I don't know if I answered your question.
It's helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great question, Melissa. In fact, in all honesty, I have seen many of the what I call the recognition systems. There's such a terrifically wonderful adoption of that system month one.
Yes.
Month two, a little bit less. I've asked people continually, look out 6 months and tell me what their adoption and participation is, and it's fallen off tremendously, because, as you say, it becomes more of a popularity system. If I can grab all my badges, if you will, let me walk around in the virtual world with all my badges showing. It becomes very much that. And to your point, Robert, we talked about that before. A leaderboard is actually doesn't create the competition. It creates much more hostility than necessary. Yeah. And you're trying to address that in the process of reducing hostility, not promoting it. So, no, excellent question. Excellent. Anyone else have any other perspectives? If not, I'm going to dominate the conversation, so stop me if I do. So let's start out with this perspective. I love the fact that you're getting people's reactions. But I will say, in all honesty, the pulse survey really does become a bit tiring. In fact, somebody asked me if do I want to answer a survey and I'll only give you an Amazon or Starbucks card or whatever. I refuse, because they get lengthy, they get boring, the same thing. How do you address that? How have you seen that better mitigated, if you will, so that people are truly responding?
People actually, we it's funny because we have the ability to turn the store off. And when my brother initially suggested that, I'm like, oh my God, no, everybody, is doing it for the prizes. And we have systems where the store is off because they have some offline reward system, and participation is just as high. In this case, people are participating because they're getting value in return. They're getting their own scores. And that's why you can get a client that has been with us for 6 years, because after not even 6 years, after 6 months, you know what the organization looks like. It's not going to change that drastically from 1 month to the next. However, people are getting feedback constantly. When I used to work in Univision, by the end of my 17 years, they decided after 17 years to do a Great Place to Work survey. Great Place to Work, I don't know if you've ever been through that, but it's like an 80-question survey. By question 30, you're having survey fatigue. You're just answering whatever to get it out of the way. And then in the end, I answered all the questions. By then, I had already found the Clarity Way, so I was super interested in seeing what was going to happen with that. And the company, we hear nothing. 3 months later, we get an email saying, we are now officially a Great Place to Work. Here's your new email signature. Make sure that you put it everywhere. And congratulations to us, pat on the back. And now we're going to start attracting a lot better talent. I'm like, okay, where did we score high? Where did we score low? What are we going to do to improve? I saw nothing at all that helped me as an employee. So that's when, as you said, no, that's when you're asking questions and you're like, why do I even bother if nothing's going to change?
Yeah. No, and I love your perspective, and I caught a little bit of that line that said, and we're going to hire better talent as a result of being the best place to work. What do you think got us here in the first place? So let's just leave that for a moment. By the way, I have to compliment you. You were in television. I will quote Dennis. I have a face for radio and a voice for silent film.
Yeah.
That's Dennis's quote. So I am curious about the perspective about the questions. So you've got a set of base questions, an exceedingly excellent perspective that you want some baseline that is very consistently being asked of all people at all levels, etc. I think that's an excellent. What are the kind of interesting other questions that you've seen? Those other three that you're allowing the customer to really customize it. What kinds of things were really people touching on that that really resulted in moving the needle, so to say, either for people or for the company as a whole?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for example, a lot of people have asked during the pandemic, are you having connectivity problems? Like, are you working from home? Do you have good internet? Do you have a well-ventilated area? Are you working in the kitchen, or do you have a good area? Is the pandemic affecting you in any other ways? Are you finding ways to socialize? We have other clients that use the questions to ask fun questions. Not everything has to be super serious or super useful. We have a client that asked, for example, if you had a superpower, what would it be? Totally unrelated, helps nobody, but it just creates some fun and good nature in the company. One of the answers was really good, because it seemed to be like super profound. It was like, if I had a superpower, I would like the power to touch a book and get all the information all at once. That way I could just, move my finger in the library and get all the knowledge. And if I couldn't get that, I'd love to be a vampire. Okay, your second choice is not as profound as the first one. That was, and people like to answer those questions. That's why Facebook does all those quizzes. If you were a type of soup, what would you be?
Yeah.
Because people like to answer fun questions. And then when you get the results, the whole idea is, what do you do with the data? What do you do with the questions? If you get a question that scored low and you take some action to correct that, ask the question again and see if you get a better result. For example, one of the lowest scored questions, which naturally is one of in many companies, is, our company has a lot of sports and social activities. Many companies don't. They don't have like a sports league or anything like that. If it's important for the company, do maybe a ping pong tournament. It's not super expensive to do something like that, and then ask the question again. Now people have to say yes to that. Or do I have the right tools to do my job? If you see that's a question, for example, in the marketing department, and people say, no, I don't have the tools, send them to a Photoshop training seminar, or to a Google PPC seminar. And next time you ask it, they have to say, yes, I am getting training. So when people see something changing, that's when they get hooked, because I'm like, oh, my voice has some volume here, and I can make some changes that are going to affect me directly.
So I love, I was going to ask the question. I would have said that the person who wanted to be a vampire could be transferred to sales, or he'll be in good company, but we'll just leave that alone. Anyway, you can see that if I give you an answer to any of the questions, you're going to have a little bit of a humor to it. So is an excellent perspective. I am curious though. I know many companies still have company stores, and that's an excellent place in a sense promoting the, I work for XYZ company, and I'm displaying on my shirt or my baseball cap or whatever the case may be. So do you have the ability to plug in some of the other, I'll call it, actually gift reward type of things? So I've seen a lot of those recently in the Technology Council, where we're talking about being able to give people a balance. The company's, giving you $100 because you did something. Use as you wish. Can I plug in something like that, so if I don't have a store and I don't know what kind of things to give away, that I can just administer that out the door, outsource it, so to speak?
We have thought about doing it a few times. It's not something we have pursued a lot. Again, the store is really the icing on the cake, and it drives so much participation as it is, that even removing the store from the equation doesn't affect participation.
Right.
The nice thing about creating your own prizes, and we actually provide the store pre-filled with not prizes, but ideas that you can just turn on and start filling yourself. For example, gift cards are a big thing. Plus, we have clients in 22, 23 countries, so it's hard for us to plug in something from Dubai or in Kuwait or South Africa. But for example, we have found that companies have used the store in super creative ways. One company uses the store to give to charity. They're in Australia. When they had the fires, one of the prizes was donate your points to charity. So if I had, let's say, 10,000 points, I could donate 5,000, and the company would give $50 to the firemen's fund. That was a beautiful way to give of myself without spending any money, and just donating my points. Another company uses the store for offline activities. So for example, they do a lot of social work, and they actually call them social coins. So whenever somebody, let's say they go to a school and they read to children, they earn 3 social coins. We created an exchange rate of a social coin is worth 2,800 Clarity Wave points. So at the end of the month, she sends me a list of these people earn these points, just add the points manually. And we do that. So now you're bringing offline activities into the online system. And now it goes far beyond answering questions. Now you can create contests and things like that, where everything is redundant, actually falls into the system.
Perfect. Perfect. I love that. I like the idea of the corporate view and the individual indices that the feedback mechanism that I'm going to get. And as you say, that is really a very vital and very differentiating aspect I've seen, not seen before. Do you provide a sense that I started at X level and over time my indice has changed either favorably or disfavorably, both at my level as an individual and potentially upwards? In other words, I don't want to look at the company as a whole, but I want to know that No was not feeling real good about himself in terms of the company, and therefore, as a result, I've seen his averages going up, his indices growing in the sense that he should be feeling much better because he's contributing, people like him, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. It strikes me that when you toss us in with wellness programs and that, you have another metric through your process that gives me an insight to the wellness as a whole. Not just the points that you're looking at, but let's say, No was overweight or didn't walk around enough or didn't take good care of himself. And because of the changes in that, I'm looking now at my wellness programs, not your program, but the wellness program. Are they being affected because the people over here are showing indices changes? I'm just kind of thinking is there a correlation in there about those kind of things?
Well, we never show any individual results. So, for example, I couldn't tell if you are particularly happy. We have to have every group has to have at least 4 people in order for me to show their information. So, if I want to see how the sea level, for example, mood and climate has been over years, I can see if they have 4 or more people. Otherwise, it'd be super easy. Let's look at how the CEO is feeling right now, and maybe it's a good time to ask him for a raise. So you don't want to do it like that. So there is, and here we kind of leave it more for each company how much they want to share of the data. The report that we give them, some companies actually post some of the pages from the report and distribute them. Some are very, very, very jealous about what they show and what they don't.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I have a feeling that many of the I'll call it the annual reports are starting to recognize the workforce statistics that are favorable, that show this is a well-run company. The workforce is very much behind the ideals and goals of the company, are very key things that show up in annual reports. Investors are starting to pay attention to the workforce finally, and not just the bottom line, which is very, very good. So I suspect that something like this and the indices you show would be perhaps even showing up in an annual report one of these days. That'd
Correct.
be good. I have 2 other very quick questions. One, very simple. Do you have any nonprofit or association clients who would potentially use this for their members, their donors, primarily more to understand, are they hitting the mark with the people that they're supporting them?
Yeah, we actually have, for example, we have a battered women's shelter in Canada. We actually give them a special price. We do a 50% discount for nonprofits. We're very big believers in what nonprofits do. So, for example, that's one. Let me think of another one. I don't think I've been asked that question before, but yeah, any type of organization when there's teams that are working together can benefit from.
Yeah, and it strikes me that you'd want to toss your volunteers in there, all that kind of stuff. To me, this is actually an excellent tool, and that's why I asked that, because I think the couple of associations I belong to might want to consider this as an interesting tool for its membership. Just judging how are we doing as an association and how do they feel about the value they're getting. So,
Correct.
So the last question I have, and this is kind of a tough one, but it's not a bad way to end. Do you have any companies who would look at this tool and say, as a result of the networking and the interaction you've created amongst my people, I am seeing innovation coming to the table, that my people are coming with new ideas that either change processes, new products, whatever, how to treat clients, just a whole bunch of things. I'm just kind of curious your thoughts. Is that kind of an end goal as well?
Well, actually, for example, one of the clients we have is the Al Ahly Bank in Kuwait. They're about 2,000 employees in UAE, Kuwait, and Egypt. And they were having so many suggestions that we actually had to create a little switch button on the preferences of the system where you can click it and it would post a message saying, we cannot take any more suggestions right now because we're working on the tons that you give. That is
right up the bat.
But it was a big enough client that we actually accommodated that. It was like you're overwhelming us with so many. Many of them were very self-serving, you know, like we want to wear pajamas to the bank, and I was like, probably not. But some of them were really, really useful, especially when people know how to do their work better than their supervisor knows how to do their work. And that's when real innovation happens, because I know what I should be doing, and there's many ways to skin a cat, and maybe my way is a lot better. So when people start suggestions, and we usually can tell when a company is going to do well based on the number of suggestions people start putting from the get-go, because that's a big indicator of engagement.
Good deal. Well, folks, one more time, any other questions or perspectives? Silence is almost golden in my world. So I will simply say, Robert, again, I'm going to echo a little bit of Melissa's perspective. I've not seen systems doing this as well in an in-depth and such broad, and if you will, effective manner in which I would call it recognition. And, you know, to me, I like the fact you call it engagement and motivation. That really, I think, are two very key words that we'd like to hear more and more of on all aspects. So again, thank you very, very much on behalf of the Technology Review Council to have presented to us. I will probably bother you guys to sit through a little bit less more of our IREM back end, if you will, because of our partnership with IREM. I really want to say that it's a great organization. Robert and I have talked about having maybe have him join us in one of our IREM events, a webinar or something of that nature in the near future. I think you'd find it most entertaining. I know our crowd would probably do so. A little different than the Technology Review Council. And again, thank you all for joining us. And I'm going to send out the recording to all those that happen to miss this session. I think it was a great one, personally. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Now, thank you everybody for participating. I hope I made it entertaining and informative.
You did. You absolutely did. So I'm going to just kind of slide through the rest of these and go from there. And again, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Anybody out there who wants to know about IREM, please go out to our site. It is ihrim.org, definitely. All the membership benefits and things like education, our knowledge resources, if you will, our community. To Robert's point, we get a lot of value out of our communities as well. And we have some really wonderful vendors in our community as well, sharing their thoughts and thinking about the HR technology space. And like I say, if you are an HRIP member, please let me know, and you know, we'll get the credits put to you officially. And I think that's pretty much it. So again, thank you all very, very much for joining us. We'll have many more of these sessions coming up. We're starting to fill up both October and well into November. So keep your eyes open for the invitations. Meantime, stay well and see you all soon. Take care now.